Welcome to the Sage Show podcast. In this episode, we speak with Pius Binder. Is that right?
Yeah, you can call me Pi.
Pi. He's the current growth product manager for Canva presentations. He was at ex-Facebook. And welcome, Pius.
Thank you so much, David, and nice to meet you too, Andrew.
Yeah. As usual, we have Andrew and David, the usual two. But the thing is, I want to get started with your story because I think it's really important for people to understand. For people who don't know you, get to know you a little bit because you were living in 7 countries over the last 10 years. And I think you have a pretty interesting story with, growing up with mom. And
yeah.
Why don't you tell us just a little bit about yourself first?
Yeah, sure. Just to clarify, I'm a product growth manager. I'm not a growth product manager, which is important.
We're going to talk about that in a second.
We'll talk about it in a second.
Yeah, we'll talk about that in a second.
Thank you so much for inviting me. I feel very privileged. As you can hear, I'm not from English native speaking. I still have an accent. It never goes away. I'm born in Austria. And I moved away 7 years ago to go abroad. And overall, I lived in 10 different countries, I think, or 7. But I actually lived in 7 countries over the last 10 years. Wow. Sorry, the other way around.
Which 7? So you were in US at one point?
US, Australia. I already lived in Australia, Germany, Austria, Indonesia, Ireland, France.
Were you working in France?
I was studying. I was abroad. I was learning French. Tried to stay there, but my French was not good enough, so I could survive. It could be like a really bad waiter maybe in France. So one country is missing, but I basically moved between. I was 2 times living in Germany, and the second time here. Yeah. So why I'm here and what is my story? I guess was the question, right?
Yeah, go ahead.
So I'm a product growth manager at Canva right now, and I think the best way to describe it is when the go-to-market strategy is the product. I totally copying this from another podcast. Then you're product growth manager. So I was thinking a lot about it. Okay, what is actually my role? What I'm doing? But I figured out the go-to-market is really the product. So it means small changes in the product and working with product managers actually can have a significant impact. Examples of Facebook is like notification to help people download the app on Messenger and things like that. So this team in Facebook was really big.
Yeah.
I'm saying that because I'm a terrible marketer. So I think growth manager is not a growth manager. There are like some nuances to it, but generally I think it's about marketing and nailing the channels. And I'm terrible in that. I think I'm not organized enough and I'm too entrepreneurial, but I can speak to that.
Okay.
I know how's it with you? I mean, you have your own business, so are you like a growth manager, a product manager? Where do you see yourself? Just bouncing the ball back. Sorry.
I think for us, Andrew will speak for himself in a second. I think for me, I would describe myself more as a marketer. Probably more on the technical side where I understand the in and out of each different channels, how I go about media buying, how I tell a story, so on and so forth. And I'm still very much in love with that. But I think the evolution of myself moving into the future will ultimately be more around product. Because at the end of the day, I think marketing is something like you can tell a story, you can do a lot of different things that will make something work, but at the end of the day, if the product sucks, it sucks. You can't solve that. It becomes a product issue, right? So then it's is there even a fit between what the customer wants versus what the product can actually offer? So that becomes a fundamental issue, right? So then if you can't solve the fundamental issues, then solving the marketing challenges seems to be a very uneducated way to solve a problem.
Yeah, I agree with it. Yeah.
It's like if the product is broken, it's not the channel that's broken. It's just the product is not a good fit. The product is just not a good fit with the customer. So then I don't necessarily think that's a channel problem. Ultimately, I think for me, I would describe myself as a marketer for now because that's my expertise. That's where I'm really, really comfortable at. But where I see myself moving into the future, how I would go through my own evolution will be ultimately around product.
Yeah. I think I was thinking about it a lot over the last couple of years because I started actually as an operational analyst in Facebook, and then I moved deeper and deeper into product, and eventually I worked in channel marketing, but I was basically like a growth marketer aligned with product teams.
Oh, by the way, what's for the people who don't know?
Yeah.
What's operational analyst in Facebook?
Yeah, so basically you're like a business analyst working on operational problems, so anything that is not tied to revenue or product.
Yeah.
So there are like a lot of channels for I worked on the Pages team. Our aim was to automate a lot of the processes for helping businesses, because there are like 60 million businesses now on Facebook, and they all have these questions, and a lot of them don't have proper support. So you need like help to operationalize these requests through machine learning, and that was the start of my career. I mean, I did a lot of different things in my life, and but that really helped me to get a good understanding of scale.
Yeah.
And as an operational analyst, your job is to make the operations more lean. And in Facebook, it was through machine learning, automation, and then doing all these amazing things. Thankfully, I worked on the business side, which was great. I think the integrity side is way more complicated and harder. I mean, everyone knows that Facebook is in the news for a lot of integrity and policy issues, and for the right or wrong reason. So I don't know, can't speak to that. I personally had a very positive experience at Facebook, I think, thanks to this exposure to technology and engineers and technical problems. I was just lucky getting in there. So I was applying many times in Google, always got rejected, not even invited to interviews. And then in Facebook, I had my job within 7 days. So it was like really fast. So I think I was just in the right stage, at the right place. And,
That's a similar story with Canva, right? I remember you telling me that, like the process to getting an offer was super fast.
Yes, let me take a step back on I think why the things happen to me. So I think I always end up being like lucky somehow with jobs, but it basically comes back to my childhood. Can I talk about my childhood?
Yeah. Go for it.
So I grew up. I'm a very visual thinker, and I love to express my ideas visually. But it also happened that I'm not terrible in math and science, because I really like working on these problems, and also entrepreneurial. So I started I had like two food truck businesses. We're going to talk
about that in a second. Because I want to ask you that.
No, I can't talk about. Oh, I can. Yeah, it's funny. It's kind of funny.
Okay, go on.
I worked as a cook. I started selling like all types of things in high school. Reselling. I started my own startup like very early on in Austria when I was like 22, so we wanted to create like custom prints, like an Etsy platform for artists. We never did it, so we got some local funding, and then I started in Facebook because I thought, I did all these other internships and things at big companies like L'Oreal, BNP Paribas. It's like an investment bank, and I figured out actually, I think I also worked in a startup. It was called Tour Radar. It's like run by two Australian brothers. It was 7 years ago, and I really loved my experience there. And I thought, I actually would love to have like startup experience in a more risk-free environment. So I'm like, let's apply for Google and Facebook, and I got a job offer there. And I think coming back to why I'm lucky, I think I'm like very opportunistic. So I got raised up with a single. I got raised by my mom, who was single raising me because my father passed away when I was young. However, since my mom is an artist, so she's like a custom designer and makes scenic design also for theaters.
Yeah.
So she was really busy. But what it allowed me to do is becoming first very independent. Second, she always let me play with all the different costumes and materials. So I was like building like small models from the age of 5. And,
that's really cool.
And I was really lucky on having this, and I really love spending the time also by myself, thinking through things, and also enjoying mathematics. And for some reason, I don't know why, I think it's just genetics or luck, I don't know why. So in the end, all of this together, I think, allowed me to be like creative and think visually and abstract, and at the same time love going into new ventures, because my mom was like this strong figure in my life that always pursued her own career, and she's kind of an entrepreneur. And then I just thought, I really don't want to go into art. It seems like super hectic. So I felt I felt I want to be a little bit smarter than my mother, because I think she was always stressed, and it was beautiful, but I think it didn't pay you well. So I grew up like with 3 people in the house, and even though you see me, I'm like white, Caucasian, tall, blonde. So I'm very privileged by many reasons, And I think in summary, which I think is a challenge now for our society, because I think we really make sure that everyone is like equally empowered, women and people with different sexual orientations.
Yeah.
However, I felt my life always was at a disadvantage because of that. Because I have this different perception than what I do, but then I think overall this made me like fight a lot for my own things, because we had like very limited resources. So eventually I was lucky on chasing all these opportunities because I needed to create it for myself. So I had my jobs, and I started working as a cook when I was 19 in a one Michelin-star restaurant in Vienna, which was fun.
You did?
Yeah, I did for a couple of months. I was terrible, so I was like peeling potatoes, but I always like literally I was peeling potatoes. But I always I never shy back on getting my hands dirty. And I think after that opened up a restaurant in Vienna, which is called Neni.
Is it still there?
Yeah, it's actually now a really big chain. They have like 10 or 15 restaurants all over Europe. It's like this Israeli family. And I think if you go to one of their stores anywhere in Europe, it's called Neni, and you eat a hot chocolate cake or Caesar salad, the recipe is still mine. So I know I impacted the life of 10,000 of Caesar salad eating people. Yeah,
that's great.
Yeah.
Oh my
Which
God.
I'm very proud of. Yeah,
yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Because one of the things I was saying to Andrew, and I feel the need for Andrew to answer the question as well in terms of like what he thinks about marketing and whether he's a product person. But I think before we go into that, what's really interesting, and it's something that is quite personal to me that I'll share anyway, because we actually never talked about it because I never knew. So I was actually raised by a single mom too.
Oh wow.
And the funny thing is my mom actually didn't stay with me for that long. My mom was she was an Iron woman, and she was halfway through her degree, and she was like, I need to finish my degree. And then I got passed on to my grandparents, and then we were raised single family. But the point I was trying to get to
happened to me as well. That's funny. Yeah.
But the point I'm trying to get to with this story is that when you're in that kind of environment, like sometimes you feel like, how come I don't have the other things that other people have? How come my parents aren't with me? There's this kind of like this fighting spirit that's inside that I want to create something for my own. That I don't ever want to go through that again.
Yeah.
And I think that's actually such a big driving force that actually makes me a great growth professional, because then it's always like, your targets are always moving, right? It's always moving. And if you tasted what a failing business will feel like or looks like, because at some point with some of the previous company I work with, we're running out of money, and we actually fired like 3/4 of our workforce overnight. I came in the office and it was just like 8 of us left from like 25.
That must have been a big change.
And it was really, really tough. But I think all of those things happened for a reason and built me up to this point where I just have this fighting spirit. It's never enough for me. And I think that's what makes some of us great with really tough childhoods. So I really see it almost like it's like, I don't like it, but it's been a big blessing in my life.
Yeah.
I don't know if you feel the same way.
Yeah, I think so too. I think if there are any listeners out there that are in similar situations, I think there's like really, there are 2 ways this can go. Either I think it can really build you up. Yeah. Or it can go the other way.
Yeah.
However, idiots like me are a good example that anything is like really possible.
Yeah, it is. It really is. It really is. We're gonna get back on the cooking story in a second, but I want to get Andrew's opinion on how he sees himself as a marketer or a product person.
Well, yeah. I mean, for me, I think product's always really important. If you got like we're saying, and we say all the time, if you got a shitty product, then no one's going to buy it. Oh, no one's going to use it. So I think product is really important. I mean, I've been doing marketing for a long time, like 10 years now. Still really like it. But I think where I'm kind of going now is more, being entrepreneurial myself. It's more looking at kind of like the business as a whole, like operations, all that sort of stuff. How does everything fit together rather than just looking at something that's siloed, like marketing or product, but how does everything fit together? I think that's kind of what I'm getting more into, and I kind of wanted to tap into. I know you guys are talking about like family and stuff as well, and I think I find because I grew up really poor, right? So I had both parents, which was great, but very very cash strapped, and I find that when people are actually in these situations when they're growing up, they actually become pretty entrepreneurial themselves. So you were saying, you're always, Pius, you were doing businesses on the side, and like when you were younger, and I know you were the same, David.
Oh, dude, we'll talk about it in a second.
Yeah.
That's some shit. Like,
and me too, right? So like I think in some ways, although you feel at the time it's a disadvantage, I think later on in life you look back and go, if I didn't have that hardship, maybe I wouldn't have worked as hard, or like being as kind of scrappy, So I think it's sometimes a good thing.
Yeah, and I want to come back to the whole product and growth thing.
Sure.
Because what's really interesting is I see the way I understand growth is very much growth is connecting new users with value that's generated by the product team. So when it comes to like value creation, that's kind of all on the product side, whereas growth teams are very much like there are new users who haven't seen the value yet, and it's all about how do we connect the users with the core product value of the product. That's kind of how I see it. I know we're kind of like going on tangent talking about family, because I think that's really important, but just because now we're talking about product and growth, I that's how I see it on the contrast.
I think, I guess how the question is how I see it. I think I agree with what you're saying. I think it's like product creates the value and growth enables it. Actually, I don't know. I think my I also see what you're saying, Andrew, is that that it's about understanding holistically the product. I'm biased because I worked in really large scale companies. So I worked at Facebook. I worked at a big bank in Austria. It's called George Labs. And I had my own business also with 1 million users a year. So my strength is developing the product with growth in mind. So that means fundamentally in anything, it's about value creation and scalability. So it means that I would always think about how I can have a scalable communication framework with customers. And later on, I know already in my mind, later I want machine learning to take care of the problem. So a lot of the things I'm like biased towards also native tools. I think I know there's like a big thought around, you always have it easier if you integrate like with these other companies. But my experience is actually the experience. I think it's like you're developing this website and it's like the Lamborghini or the Ferrari of websites.
Yeah.
And then growth always becomes like a necessity. So imagine if you are like a Lamborghini store, and then you target customers with ads or with flyers on the street.
Yeah.
I think the quality of growth needs to be embedded in the product. It needs to feel for the customer as one thing.
Yeah.
And I think that's like a big challenge. And I think that's part of things I'm good at and I'm advocating for, because I have seen the scale and how it works. I mean, if you think about Facebook, from outside, I can't speak of it as a former employee, or Google, like it takes some like seconds testing anything on the search page, and that's only because they invested like so many resources on making this like really really good, and having the best testing engine in the world. And or when you see like if you move like from, I lived in San Francisco for around 3 years, and I was interviewing quite a lot because I left my job, or I had to leave my job in Facebook, and when you move from one tech company to the other, they always hire each other engineers, and they have like the best tech experimentation stack I think in the world because of that. And I think that's part of the reason why you pay the rent and the amount of money in San Francisco, because these highly scalable companies, and they are scalable because they have the best talent across. They're sharing like basically all this infrastructure and talent pool, which is probably, I know if you build like the best experimentation engine in the world, there are probably like 10 engineers in the world who built it.
Mm.
You know, and you literally go like from one company to another, and you interview, and you mention like, oh, you did this, and they literally named the tool the same, you know. And you explain it goes down to this level, and then I think if you're outside of this bubble, and I think that's part of the success story of Silicon Valley. I think it's like and also the partnerships, but I think part of it is really the shared tech staff that were really able to do all the things, and then I think marketing and growth becomes essentially like a product function because it's guide like all the technological barriers are removed, and for front end heavy problems, not for back end. But then it comes about guiding customer through this journey, and the job of a product manager is very different in these companies compared to other companies for consumer facing products. So I think, to sum it up, I think the lines are a little bit blurry. And in the end, you define your own spin on it. Yeah. But scalability and automation is like for no matter where you are, it's gonna happen. And I think anyone, no matter in which function you are, you need to embrace it. Yeah. One way or the other. Yeah.
So you talked a lot about experimentation engines. I had a list of questions I want to ask you. I'm gonna throw that away because I want to talk about this. So you were talking a lot about experimentation engine. How are you finding the engine that's in Canva right now? Because it seems like, you know, out of some of the unicorns here in Australia, Canva's one of the rare few who's kind of done it to the point that's very similar to Atlassian, right? So then it's like, how are you finding what they have in-house right now? What are they doing really, really good that you can talk about?
I think this is not what I can't talk about. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Bummer. Okay, so you're working in presentation.
But all the people are really good. Yeah. So in Canva, like I think the team is really amazing. Sorry, what you were saying? Yeah.
So you're working on presentations now.
Yeah.
And you know, it seems like, you know, there's no need to kind of do acquisition anymore since you guys have so many users. Or is that a problem? Do you have
I don't know. So let's take a step back here. I think let's speak about it generally, not from a Canva perspective.
Okay.
So there are like 500 million users each year creating presentations, or 1 billion presentations created each year. Yeah. It's like a massive market. Yeah. And the tools that are used to create presentations are
Google Slides,
PowerPoint mostly, and then Google Slides, it's like pretty good, and then Prezi and the long tail. Yeah. So, and I think there hasn't been a lot of things. So this is my personal opinion. Yeah. I think there hasn't been a lot of stuff done to help people create like amazing presentation. And if you go to Canva and try out presentations, it's totally no ad. You're gonna find it like fucking amazing. It's so smooth, it's super fast, and part of the reason is that the focus has, I think, that's my personal lens, has like a strong design lens, and it actually helps me to really focus on the content and the storytelling rather than making my slides nice. Because Canva does like such an amazing job on making these beautiful designs. And imagine if you're like resource constrained, like a startup or even like a student, you might find it like hard buying like PowerPoint, and so I think Canva presentation is an amazing tool. Yeah, you can still export stuff as PowerPoint if you need to, and I think let's go back to the big problem and stop the ads, which I wasn't supposed to be. I'm really passionate about it. Is that I think this is a huge market. Not a lot has been happened to disrupt it, and I think helping those users creating like easier presentations and helping them with communication is like a big opportunity. Yeah, and I think it's time to help those users, and I think it's not a question on if it happens. It's a question of when, how, who. Yeah.
Because I was gonna say there's another startup I'm aware of. Is it Quilla? Have you heard of that before? There's another kind of like presentation. I mean, how does like what you guys are doing in Canva kind of differentiate from their product as well?
Can you talk about that?
I mean, I don't know the company well enough.
Right.
I don't know. I need to understand the business model better and what they're doing. I think it's. I think since it's such a big space. I think it's like a big room to grow for everyone, and I think it's, from my perspective, it's more about helping like users with alternative tools. I think PowerPoint is like, it's kind of heavy, like you need to download it. I mean, it works, but I think collaboration is a little bit hard.
Yeah.
Google Slides also that. But I think, I think sometimes you don't always want to be like with this big companies. They are like really, really big, and they care about having like impact for most users, but then sometimes the cool stuff, the amazing stuff is missing. And I think, I think that may be like one of the spin Canva is doing different than others. So I don't know. I think there's still a lot of work to be done, and I can't speak to that.
I have to say, when it comes to slides, one of the biggest problem is like the design. It was I don't know, we talked about this, but I remember using the old school days when we did our uni presentations on PowerPoint. It was such a shit thing to do, because we had to share the slides with every fucking person on the file, and it all looks slightly different, potentially on different desktops. I just remember I did use Canva slides for some of the stuff that we created, and I have to say, like, it just makes it gives me the opportunity to focus on the content. I think that's what's
the most
really
important thing.
Because it cuts out a lot of the work of the design side, which makes it a little easier. And we'll stop this ad because I think we talked enough, and I just thought it was really cool.
I'm not sponsored by Canva today or anything.
Oh, I can go find out. But let's talk about Craft Oak.
Yeah, sure.
Because to me, one of the most interesting thing is we're talking about, you know, like every engineer wants a side hustle, or actually everyone wants a side hustle.
Everyone in general, yeah.
Eventually.
Yeah, I figured that out. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. How did that? What was the inspiration around starting Craft Oak? And for the people who don't know, what is Craft Oak?
Yeah. Do you want to have the real story?
Oh, tell me. No.
Or
no.
Okay.
No, tell the real story.
So it's a tricky one, but basically I was working in Facebook, and I basically stole the idea of another coworker who did it in Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
With the intention of he was a former friend of mine. Now obviously we're not friends anymore. But basically the intention of it was that I thought I can do this, and he stole the idea from a real business outside of Facebook.
Yeah.
But I think it's blame is on me. But basically my idea was I can focus on the US market, and eventually my vision was to create like something that serves like more needs. So I think the idea was not, I think, oh, it's an awesome idea, I want to pivot it. It's like the way I thought about it, and I think that's one of the areas I need to develop is like it's just making up another coffee shop. She has a coffee shop, it's my friend, but I make a coffee shop now too. That's how I thought about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So basically I saw this idea, and Craft and Org is originally was called Yawn Maps.
Yeah.
And the idea was that we help people connect with the places that matter most to them through a poster.
Yeah.
Or the wall art. And then I gave it a thought for the product vision, and thought like, maybe it's not only about the places, but what if we help anyone create like really beautiful art in their home in a personalized way. So there are a lot of sites where you can order posters.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But I think giving people like a framework on having like in 2 or 3 steps something nice created was the big idea. And then also having it like mobile first. Mm-hmm. And also I thought I had a lot of ideas from Facebook about mobile composers and flows, because I was working very, very heavily on mobile optimization. Like Facebook is mobile first, and I was like, okay, what if we also give this product like a price point that makes sense for customers to love it, and really add a lot of value through giving this personal spin.
Yeah.
That was the second thought, but I had convinced the co-founder Humphrey, who is the CEO. I was lucky enough that he was like looking for an opportunity, and I was like, I'm at Facebook, no way I can pull this off.
Okay.
Like I need to convince someone that is believing in an idiot like me to work together.
Yeah.
So Humphrey at the time was looking for a job, and because he worked at Machine Zone, which is like big like gaming company, and he was kind of tired of the corporate games and was like, I want to do something by myself.
Yeah.
And I convinced him to start working on it. Or together, like, I mean, he was convinced and he did like a few other things. And then I had a friend of mine from Lithuania. I worked with him on projects in the bank before, where I did internships to do some stuff. And he became like a really big tech guru in Lithuania. And I convinced him as well, like, hey man, that's like a good idea. What do you think? Yeah, it's awesome. Let's just copy it. How difficult can it be? Like,
Yeah.
and of course and then we had like three idiots, like working on this, and it was really beautiful because I basically did a lot of wireframing and design and thinking through product before, but I never had like that full control of it. And why was I doing it? Because I just got like really tired of being in a big company. I was at the time 3 years in Facebook, and I moved with my ex-wife there. So we got married before, and I just needed like a significant new challenge for my life. I felt like I'm not leveling up my skills and be able to progress in my career. So then we did all of this, we launched, and the site like exploded. Like in a way, we had like a lot of traffic very soon. So
What year was this? It was
like
2017?
2017. Yeah. Spring 2017, I think. Yeah. So we had like in the first 30 days, 100 sales, like, and each post is like was $50 on average.
How'd you launch?
Yeah. So initially we forced like our friends to test it out and give them vouchers.
Yeah.
They gave us like feedback, and initially also so it's like a print business as well. So we created the editor and the print, and both is like very hacky. And then we had all those problems on not only choosing the images, but also generating like high quality PDFs and making sure this is working, and then also reviewing. We had like a review queue, so my operational lens was really good. So we built this entire review queue on helping to review tickets, print orders, because customers make mistakes.
Yep.
And it's better to ask them up front, hey, did you really want to review every single thing that came through? And then we passed it on, sent it to the printer, and we integrated with a small printing shop in San Francisco, because our hypothesis was we need to integrate with all the small places, and then eventually it's going to work.
Okay.
But it turned out the printing shop wasn't able to handle the capacity, so they mixed up like orders. Also, what we didn't know is that, believe it or not, people order more than one poster, and we didn't know how to match it, so we had to create like a card.
Yeah.
And our infrastructure was not prepared, which were like mistakes kind of, but it wasn't really, because it was for everyone, like Humphrey, Simonas, and myself, a big learning. And there was the fourth developer, Arnas. And then we had thankfully all this money coming in because it was going well, because we forced our family and friends, and then we figured out this one growth channel that was like helping us to grow so much.
So you're bootstrapping.
Yeah, bootstrapping. Yeah. So we invested each $6,000, I think. And then someone comes to Facebook, and his name is Shithead Steve, and he says like, hey, I want to help you. He calls me like, hey, I need help. Like something happened, and like, I can't help you. I work for Facebook. I can help you. And like, yeah, please. I'm like, my account is banned. And I'm like, okay, let's chat. And I didn't want to, but then I figured out actually he had a serious problem, because Shithead Steve had like 1.5 million followers, and his account was blocked from Facebook because of some IP issues. And he was like a prominent guy in the meme world. Yeah. So I connected him with the team, and he got unblocked, and then he made like a shout out for our business.
Wow.
And our homepage crashed. Then we fixed it in the night, so we had like usually like, we looked like on our Google Analytics, we had like 5 users at times, or one. We're like, oh yeah, where are they coming from? Yeah. And then we had like 300 users live, and then 0. And like, what's happening? And then the homepage crashed, and like freaking out and writing up what's happening, and then I'll develop. Yeah, we run out of server space, and it was so funny. But the thing is, we're like, oh, that's actually working, and then we started paying. And it came to the point where we paid like $30,000-$40,000 these memers to just create like jokes about our business each month. And our business was like scaling, and then we got picked up by Product Hunt, and we became product of the day. So everything happened at the same time.
That's really cool.
And then you are on the internet, you have your footprint.
Yeah.
So if you're like for 2 or 3 months, I think in that case we had like, it can go very slow, but once you have this, you have your footprint, and Google, I think, starts indexing you. I don't know a lot about the SEO. I really focused only on product and was hoping that something good will happen. And then the business took off. We integrated from a small print shop in San Francisco to a really big one somewhere else.
Yeah.
And we started researching printing technology, and we're using now really, really good, high quality and cheap printing technology our competitors are not using. And right now I think we operate like at a third or fourth of cost of our competitors, like not big print companies, but other people in the field, like Mapiful or what's the other one? Graphomaps. So I think we really nailed having a very low cost. And then what happened next is we got this lawsuit from the European competitor, like they were called Mapiful. And also I had awkward conversations with my former friend, like from Facebook, like, what are you doing? So he kind of tried to force me to close the business, and it was going really well, obviously. And like, what are you doing? And I think looking back now, I think he really has a point, but we really proved our own concept. So I think it was more like I really hurt his ego, and probably I hadn't reacted the same way, but it made sense.
Yeah.
And then, but it didn't matter, because then this lawsuit came in, and this conversation was super stressed, what to do about it and what to tell my manager at Facebook. So I decided my manager not to tell her anything. I told her I'm going to launch the business. And we just ignored the lawsuit. We checked in with the lawyer. It was fine. And then we reached like around $1 million in sales in our 18 months later. Like, not the first year we had around 400,000, and 1 year later we had around $900,000 in sales.
Yeah.
Small operating small margin, but I think we were able to scale something. And that's the story pretty much. I think now everything is like more calm. We are indexed on SEO. I'm removed from any operations, so Humphrey is as well taking a break, and now Patricia and Simonas in Lithuania are managing like all of it. So now it's like a woman-led company. So we have like Patricia in Lithuania, we have Mauro in Ecuador, in Guatemala, and we have our engineers also in Lithuania, but we are like way less on the development side, and I'm just like catching up on the months, and we think up on how the business is doing and opportunities to streamline operations. So we made a few mistakes in the past, and we try to iron out. And we also right now trying to sell the business because I think it's like, what you shouldn't forget is like, first of all, these side hustles are always like hard initially. So I think when you start doing it, I think the question that you had was as well, how to do it. I think first of all, if you have an idea, you should just go for it, and also you need to invest some money. I think there's some ideas on the internet and that's my personal opinion on, you don't need to invest anything. I think you need to have good people to work with, of course, but then you also need to pay. And I think doing cheap things right now in where we are in the stage of product development doesn't really work that well anymore. I think all these growth hacks are like, these low-hanging fruits on the internet are like taken care of already by some other solutions. So I think that's why I think you're right. I think you really need to think through product-led growth first nowadays, because I think everything is more competitive. And if you want to open up like a coffee shop or go into retail, it's different. But if you actually want to go and build something digital, I think you really need to think of scale and making something significantly better. compared to what is on the market, because it's way more competitive.
100%.
Yeah. If you're not working on Canva presentations, what would you personally work on?
I think first, I have a few pillars in my life. The first one is I work on myself in terms of staying fit mentally and physically. I think.
What are you doing now to keep yourself like mentally and physically fit?
Yeah, I think taking physically is like I'm exercising every single day.
Yeah.
I think it's so important, like starting the day fresh, and even if I'm tired, I try to start my day through an exercise, even if it's like 30 minutes, but I do it every day. And mentally, it's resting, and I'm reading. So I think I'm bad in reading and I'm also bad in making conscious time for my friends, but actually meeting my friends and community and family is important to me. And I tend just to work till I think it's like one of the baggages I bring with my past with me. I just forget my surroundings, and I'm just like so deep into work that I forget like calling friends. So I literally have reminders in my calendar to call my friends and family, so I don't forget.
I think we can relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I mean, I guess
Not
maybe
part of
everyone
it.
does, but I think it really affects me. I really need to make sure that I'm in peace with my surroundings and I have like strong community. And then having like purpose, like thinking about what I like to do, and also trying during work, because we spend so much time there on working on projects that are exciting me and on the right things that I feel are energizing me. And if it's hard finding small pieces in the projects I like, I mean, everyone has to do like work that is not nice. It's just part of
That's why it's called work
work.
sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think you have a lot of flexibility and taking time off. Like I haven't taken holiday. I now want to go on holidays somewhere. If you have recommendations, let me know. Yeah.
I'll let you know after.
Yeah,
the,
after that,
yeah.
Got to think about that
Yeah.
one. Yeah, so many places. Cool.
So you would, like, if you aren't working on Canva presentations, you will choose one of the pillars and tackle one of the problems within the pillars.
I guess if we're not working for Canva presentations, I would either ideally it's difficult, maybe work or definitely work maybe on another problem within Canva. I think it's really exciting times, and I love the leadership, I love my colleagues, and I love helping the users.
Yeah.
I think it seems like a really cool time, and everyone is it's a very positive, there are very positive dynamics there. Otherwise, I think I probably would go maybe to one more place to learn. I think one more company. I'm not sure what it is, but maybe it's like something completely different. Or build something my own. So I think I'm thinking of, what could I really do that? So right now we were talking before the recording, so I already wrote down an idea I had for how I can help with something. So so I am constantly exploring, and I think I would love that. So if I
Does
had
it happen a lot? Like, do you think, because entrepreneurial people, like, they're always thinking of what's the next idea? Do you get that a lot? Like, you're in the shower, or you're like just, I don't know, just sitting there and like ideas come and you kind of get like excited by them, or
yeah, I think it happens like once every 3 days. I have like something every 3 days. I have like a moment like, oh wow, that would be cool. Yeah. So right now I had like a moment, oh wow, that would be cool. Yeah. And then they're like every day, like 2 or 3 times a day, I have like, oh, that would be a nice solution for this thing. Like for smaller things.
Yeah.
And how do you go about like validating those two? Like, because I mean, coming up with an idea is one thing, but then going, okay, so is this actually? Because I think one of the big things that we see a lot when people come up with an idea and they jump into it, and we're like, they come to us because we also teach and we get students, and they're telling us their idea, and we're like, okay, cool, that's a really good idea, but how's it going to make money as well, which is another one thing. So a lot of people don't think about the money side as well when they first get excited about something. So
I think I always connected, but not always. I mean, sometimes, like the other day I had an idea to create an app to help people to control their alcohol intake by creating like a beautiful app for Apple Watch.
Right.
Because so many people are drinking. Like 1% of all Americans are at AAA, Imagine 1%, like 1 out of, it's crazy.
Yeah, it's nuts.
So imagine if you have like a really beautiful app, not only to help people that are already like fine or like on the way, but also prevent it. Yeah, and that's a very personal story because my mom, when she was single, she had like a boyfriend who was alcoholic, and he was like a really nice guy, but we were suffering as a family. Now my mom is like married, and he's like a father to me. But I think like, oh wow, that would be cool. And there I'm thinking about really money second. I think there will be ways to monetize it. And however, generally I think having monetization in mind comes naturally with experience.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably a good thing that you not think about money because it constrains you less. So the way I go about it is, I literally, like, now when I have an idea about this app, I can literally visualize how someone will use it. So I think myself, I can literally see the app. Like, I don't know what it looks like, but I can see the behavior of humans. So not really. It's more like, I don't know what it is, but I'm literally like
you can see it through their eyes how they would use
I could close my eyes and I see people using it, talking. So
Gotcha.
I'm like immersing into this experience and think whether it makes sense and try to. It's almost like empathy moments, I think, like thinking,
Right.
oh wow, would it make sense? And then
So would this fit in someone's life?
it's like
Would
fantasies,
they...
fantasies. And then from there on, I will see, oh, actually, this could work. And then I think, how big is the market? Does it make sense? I know how to scale it, how to touch the. So then I'm thinking through all those problems.
Then you get more practical. And,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But I think that comes naturally. But you need to be exposed to problems like that. If you work your life in an industry where it's harder because it's very slow moving, let's say, where hasn't been innovation in the last 100 years, let's say. Funerals, yeah, like or banking. Banking is maybe banking. If you funerals, then I think it's harder thinking about change that way because the life cycles are very long. But since we are working, I'm working with software technology, everything changes very fast. And in Facebook, I mean, it's the company known for experimentation and understanding users. So my thinking is like very much that you're able to understand user behavior really, really fast compared to conducting service like 30, 40 years ago when fast-moving consumer goods became like very fast. They were on the edge back then. They started using first computers to understand user behavior, but now it's like they're like almost behind. Yeah, right?
The other way around.
So yeah. And we need to think about it. What is it in 20, 30 years? Like who is what it's going to change? Maybe we're going to be the fast-moving consumer boring people. Who knows? Yeah.
It would be hard to imagine.
Not boring.
That.
Yeah.
It would be hard to imagine that.
Yeah, it would be. But I'm sure they would have said that back then too.
Yeah.
But don't you think like that's the internet has become like more corporate?
Oh yeah.
It's become more PC.
It's more PC, right? So don't you think like it used to be? I think I was like an outlier. I had like a computer when I was like 8 or 9, and I had the first MP3 player in my class, and I really believed in technology.
Yeah.
And it was kind of weird. So I think even though I was very driven, I was also like really weird and kind of an outsider a bit. But I think I still am. But now I really embrace it because I really like
I think it's
who
a
I
good
am.
thing.
I think the times have changed like where you can embrace it without the judgment.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh yeah.
Wait. So, do you mind if I ask like how old are you this year?
Say what?
How old are you this year?
I'm 30.
Okay. So I'm 27, right? So then like when I was younger, when we had like Game Boys and like all of that was really cool. Like every little piece of tech that first came out. I still remember when I was a kid, Dad had that phone. You know, have you seen those like big ass phones back in the days, like black
Golden Gecko ones?
Yeah. Those black phones, and then like it takes you ages to just pull it out to dial the numbers.
Looks like it's gonna call it an airstrike kind of thing. Is it?
Yeah.
Almost like planting a bomb, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it was massive. And I remember the first time when I came to Australia and I saw a Mac for the very first time, and I was like, "What is that?" Like, and I was so drawn to it, and you kind of get addicted to that kind of stuff. And I know that we're strapped on time. We only have a couple more minutes left with you. But I think the whole thing with internet is the way I think about internet is very much like the decentralization of information. because back in the days, the way we researched, the way we understand a certain subject matter was all about in the library. We had to spend time in the library. I had to read the books, so on and so forth. I think times has really changed where information is decentralized everywhere and you can access it. There's no problem with accessibility. I mean, there are some in like very remote areas of the world, but I think the internet has kind of gone to a place where people are super PC and there's a lot of keyboard warriors where their view is biased, and because of all of that, people have figured ways how to manipulate them. That makes sense. I think it's like, I don't know what to believe anymore.
Yeah. I guess there are two things. One is the perception or for the consumer, and one, I think, is also how these things are managed. Like from product, engineering, growth, or like, let's say, whoever the people who run the thing.
Yeah.
I think, let's say, whoever the people who run the thing versus the people that consume the thing.
Yeah.
These two worlds. I guess, yeah, that has changed. And I think what used to be like, yeah, you want to work like in investment banking. Now people want to work in tech.
Yeah, the time has changed.
Right.
It definitely has changed.
What used to be like, oh, I want to work in a fast-moving consumer good was I want to work as an investment banker, like before. I don't know what it was before, and I feel now we are a stage of saturation. I feel tech is like becoming this thing now. So I was still like lucky enough we are lucky enough and to be able to be part of that. But a lot of the things, and I think you mentioned it before, like it's almost the same games you do in growth. So I think it's like the same framework. You need to activate all the channels. One channel at a time, you optimize it a little bit. Okay, then you come into attribution problems. You need to fix it. So it's almost like you follow a recipe. Yeah, so there is already a blueprint. Marketing has never changed, but I think the blueprint on how you do things is already there for the internet.
Yeah.
And technology is easier accessible. So I think if you go like to any Shopify store, it could be pretty cool. You know, I mean, I don't like Shopify because the sales agent almost destroyed our company, Grafton Oak, because it caused so much fighting. So they're like, all the sales companies are really good in coming in, working with partners. So we work like with a marketing guy, and he was also a Shopify partner, and he really pushed the agenda on upgrading us. And oh my god, it was so horrible. Like it almost drove our company apart. I don't want to talk bad about Shopify, but what I want to say is that they're doing a really good job on having extremely good products for average salespeople. So I think when you look in these tech companies, let's take any company like Google or like, let's say another one, Lyft in the US or Uber. I think it's a very clear set of people to hire. They hire like Ivy League people in US going into business, sales or product. They're hiring engineers from really good universities. Maybe like second year is considered to go into engineering jobs. Yeah. So Ivy League only for business and operation, I think, and then other universities for engineering. The bar is a little bit lower because it's more expensive, but still high. And that's who they hire. Yeah. And 10 years ago, I think it was slightly different. You didn't have this need for these people to want to work there, but now everyone wants to work there because the other opportunities are not that interesting anymore. And I think the who is running the show thing has changed, and I personally find it really, really hard because I'm just different. You know, I don't feel. I went to a really good university, I think, and I did the best I can, but I felt that was like something very different I experienced. So I think technical driven decision making and also being able to be a little bit different becomes less and less acceptable in tech. So I think there's still this. I think there's still these norms and these ideas on, this is what it is. But actually, it becomes like a very homogeneous mass of people now. from my perspective, which is like great, and I can learn from it. But I feel slightly. I feel like, hey, I'm not sure if I belong here anymore. I mean, now it's different. I think Canva is different stage and it's super nice. But I've definitely felt like this in Facebook for myself. I felt like, wow, like the people are so similar. It's like they're hiring like clones of each other, literally. Which makes sense because it makes everything more efficient. I mean, diversity is lived and there are like programs in place, but there's a program in place to do it, right? So everything is like at a different scale. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I think I agree with that. Like, I know we got to wrap up soon, but I thought, like, in the US, I think it's still, there's a lot of that. You need a degree to do this or that. But I think in Australia, it's getting a lot better. I think Singapore too, because I spent a bit of time there as well. It's more about like slowly. It hasn't kind of reached mass saturation, but it's less that you need a degree and more that you need to be able to solve problems. I think it is like if you're good at solving problems, and you can prove it, whether that's you've created something like something on the side or whatever it might be. I think if you can show that you can solve problems, the degree doesn't really matter as much anymore.
Yeah.
But in the US, I still see that's. Like it's always about degree. You need this degree. Even when I look at the jobs there, because I just curious. Like I get curious sometimes. I look at jobs in the US for certain things, even what we're doing, like growth marketers and stuff. And there's you need this degree and that degree in this many years, and you're like
Yeah, I think part of the reason is that I think the internet is not that central anymore. So I think a lot of it is driven through partnerships.
Right.
So if you unlock and Salesforce and who else is there? Like Salesforce is a really good example. They grew like really massively and. I think a lot of it is like partnership driven, or even Shopify, like they have like partnership programs to sell. So I think the internet is centralized for information for consumers, but for the decision makers, I feel it's like a very small group of people that actually decide what's happening.
Yeah.
Right. So I think, okay, if like Facebook and let's make another company, like Google and Apple disagree on something. On some stupid API call, it has massive impact on all users, right? It's crazy. So, however, if there happen to be like two people that went to school together and they trust each other, it's way easier having this conversation, right? Like and I think, and then people change jobs and they're like everywhere. So I think it's so important, like. Hiring also for the partnerships and potential in the network. And I think the internet wasn't like that. I think 10, 15 years ago, there was like chaos. No one knew what is going to happen. I mean, there was like Steve Jobs and Bill Gates who were outstanding all their life. But I think there was still room for chaos and people to do things that actually creates value add in a decentralized way. I think this is now gone. I think if you want to be successful, there are like incubators that help you. It helps if you know people there, I guess. Yeah, right. It helps.
Yeah.
You know the framework, you know what you need to take care of, and then you have access to talent. So I think a lot of it is like driven through socioeconomic factors.
So still who you know.
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, you still need to be smart on top of that. But I think it's definitely the case. Yeah, it helps to be connected.
I think smart is so relative. Like one of those things with your intellectual prowess is kind of like sometimes you're not very good at a certain subject matter, but you could be really intelligent in other subject matters. I don't know. Like. I'll tell you a story after this podcast about the whole IQ thing, because I always had a problem talking to Andrew about like I hate the idea of fucking IQ tests, and I'll tell you why in a second. But I think chatting to you has kind of like really opened our eyes in terms of like what you could do, how you can come from different background and still kind of explore or expand on your skill set. I don't know, man. We just really appreciate having you here. We've been waiting for a little while and we're really excited. We're just so thankful to have you today.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you too.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in.
Yeah, you don't go joining like this all alone. So I would like to thank my former manager, Avril, who helped me to be here today. And also my family, who always has been a huge fan and support of me. Thank you.